I once asked my favorite 4-year-old daughter, our niece and our daughter, what she wants to be when she grows up. She quickly replied without hesitation, an influencer. Nowadays, not anymore though. I frowned and quickly replied back, that's not an actual job. Yet today, we're in Rome to celebrate the life of a holy influencer? Not only that, he will be canonized along with a fellow Northern Italian. Come on, follow us as we do a pilgrimage to Rome and a surprise destination outside of Rome entirely on our own. And maybe like us, you'll learn something about these two saints too. We can be inspired and be blessed with the story of these two men who led extraordinary lives.
We also hope to see a glimpse of that fellow merchant in a white robe as he leads and ushers the Catholic Church by recognizing his first two new saints of his pontificate. Hopefully, Papa Leon or Pope Leo XIV, whose previous job was a math teacher, will inspire us to be like these two holy men whose passions are polar opposites, but not totally contradictory. We will also see if doing our own pilgrimage to the eternal city is worth the effort, and if money saved is worth its dime. What will be the hardships and challenges that we will encounter in this pilgrimage? Will it be a learning experience, or will it be one of those things to say, never will I do this again? Will we be able to be blessed spiritually in this pilgrimage? Will our souls be blessed by the witnesses of the lives of these two saints? And hopefully, this video can act as a basic guide to your own pilgrimage to Rome and perhaps beyond. We got to FCO Rome Airport almost midnight, so we used Leonardo Express train to the center of Rome as it is a little bit faster and easier than the buses. The taxis and the hail ride companies are on the expensive side. We just follow the train signs to Leonardo Express. You might need to validate your ticket before getting into the train. Leonardo Express terminates to Roma Termini, Rome's main train station. When we got to Roma Termini, we wanted to use a taxi to our accommodation, which is near the Vatican. But the chaotic scene outside of the Termini and the confusion of where to get a taxi, plus numerous suspicious persons offering you a taxi ride, totally discouraged us. We intended to use the metro anyway, plus there are more cops inside Termini, so we felt a bit secure. We just use our maps on our phone to guide where to get off and what metro line should we use. The ticketing machine was easy to handle as long as you change the language to English in our case. There are several buying options for tickets, so please buy the ticket that suits your needs. We got to our accommodation at exactly 1 a.m., but there was a language misunderstanding between us and the host that it took him another 30 minutes to show up. Our patience was running thin and pretty exhausted standing a darkened alley outside the building of where we are staying. And for traveling the whole day, plus we had to wake up really early for the canonization. It would have been better if there was just a simple instruction on how to retrieve the apartment key outside the building, just like every other host does. We woke up really early and excited to be at the Vatican around 7 a.m. My expectation and dream was to be as close as I can be to the altar. And boy, I was wrong. You see, the gates opened to the pilgrims around 8 a.m. So 7 a.m. I thought was an ideal time for us to be there. And look at this. I learned later that some priests actually have to set up tents and sleep at the St. Peter's Square so they won't be late. A sea of people greeted us from all over the world and were surprised to meet a lot of Americans. But what surprises us the most is we met a very good friend of ours from Texas. We attended the canonization mass together, but we're so far away from the altar that we were not able to go to communion because of the confusion or where the supposedly 80,000 people should go. It felt like there was 1 million people here. Anyway, please check the Vatican website that handle these kinds of events. Some events require tickets. Fortunately, the canonization of Saint Carloacutis and Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati does not require one. I am now at the point of my age that no matter how you arrange the digits, the value remains the same. No, I am not 66. A long time ago in the 80s, when most of the world still uses a calculator, our school introduced computers and computer programming in our curriculum. Our computers were TRS-80 and then Apple I. I apologize in advance if some of these terms sounds ancient Egyptian to you. Please bear with me. At a young age, I learned programming languages. In today's terms, they call it coding. Why am I telling you this? It's because today, a saint who speaks my language, pun intended, is going to be canonized by the Catholic Church. To be perfectly accurate, I learned basic Fortran and D-Base. So this saint might look at me like Einstein would look at a high school teacher. He was way too advanced for me in a very young age. Let me tell you more about this geek or nerd whose holiness is as amazing as his coding skills. As early as my grade school days, I was also introduced to scouting, where I learned to love the outdoors. This other saint who will be canonized along with the geek saint loves the outdoors so much that nowadays he could be considered a free-range holy soul. Let's dive into their stories as we explore the road they took to holiness. First, let's talk about the outdoor saint who lived almost a century ago. I am so excited to know the life of this saint, who I share the same passion, the outdoors and hiking. Who is Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati? Why is he relevant to the people of the 21st century? Pier Giorgio Frassati was born in Turin, Italy in 1901. As a Bosconian, he reminded me of Don Bosco, whose youth ministry was centered also around Turin. Like Carlo Acutis, Pier Giorgio also came from a well-to-do family, but Pier Giorgio's family was politically active. He joined the St. Vincent de Paul Society when he was 17 to serve the sick, the needy, and the orphans, including servicemen who got injured in World War I. He decided to study to become a mining engineer to bring Christ to the miners. He became active with the Catholic Student Foundation and Catholic Action in response to the social teaching of Pope Leo XIII. Pier Giorgio's heart, though, belongs to the poor. He would even give up his bus fare for the food for the poor and just walk home. Charity was a way of life for him. He would attend daily mass and receive communion. What gave him strength, though, was his frequent nocturnal adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. He would frequently meditate on St. Paul's Hymn of Charity, which is based on the 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and the writings of St. Catherine of Siena. His other passion, though, was the outdoors. Pier Giorgio and his friends would spend a lot of time mountain climbing but never miss praying the rosary, reading the scriptures, and attending mass. He was also a very ordinary guy who goes out with his friends to theaters, operas, and museums. He loved music and art, but he also does not shy away from politics, being an anti-communist and anti-fascist, and sometimes getting into fights because of them. In 1922, he joined the lay Dominican, otherwise known as the Third Order Dominican. Before completing his university degree, Pier Giorgio contracted polio, and doctors speculated that he got it from the sick that he tended, not minding his own welfare. His love of the poor was so strong that his last act before dying was to tell his friend to bring the medicine to a poor sick man that he had been helping. Among the thousands of people who attended his funeral are the poor whom Pier Giorgio was helping. They were so surprised to know that Pier Giorgio was an heir to the Frassati's family fortune. He was only 24 years old when he died. Pope John Paul II called Pier Giorgio the man of the 8 Beatitudes. In 1981, his body was found to be incorrupt. Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati, pray for us. The next day, we have to wake up really early again so we can travel to a place made famous by perhaps one of the most famous poor saint who grew up rich. Sounds familiar? That's because Saint Francis of Assisi was Saint Carlo Acutis' favorite saint, and both families are considered wealthy in today's money. We bought the train tickets online using Trainline, but I'm pretty sure you can also buy it from ticket machines in the terminus station. We were wondering why there were no assigned seats, and we found out that it's because it's a regional train. The train to Assisi from Rome and Termini was hard to find because the gate to platform 1ES, 2ES were confusing to find as the gate is found outside of Termini on the northeast side, not from the main plaza of the terminus station. Platform 1EST, 2EST is mostly used for regional trains like the ones we were trying to get to. Please allow yourself 5 to 10 minutes more from the main place of Roma Termini, where people congregate if you're riding the train to Assisi. The ride was spectacular as it goes through the Italian countryside. This will be magnified later when we get to Assisi.
So after 2 hours and 20 something minutes, we got here in Assisi. And we just have to find the bus. We were here, I don't know when was that, last time.
From the train station of Assisi, we needed to buy bus ticket to the town of Assisi. You can buy these tickets from either the kiosk just outside the train station or from the bar inside. As a follower of St. Augustine, I always believe it is through the prayers of our mother that gets us closer to God, just like what St. Monica did to her famous son, who ultimately became a doctor of the church. In Carlo Acutis' case, it was the other way around. It was Carlo who deeply influenced the conversion of his very own mother. Today, we first look at the life of this boy saint through the eyes of his mother. After all, our mother knows us best. Antonia Salzano Acutis gave birth to Carlo in London in 1991, when her husband Andrea was setting up a business there, and then they moved back to Milan. Carlo's parents were nominal Catholic, or what we used to call CCW Christians, communion, confirmation, and wedding-only Christians. Those are the only events that made them go to church. One of the first conversions that happened through the witness of Carlo happened to his very own mother. And then to the most unlikely being, a Hindu. If you are able to change the heart of someone who probably knows very little about Jesus and influence them, then you know that God's love is powerful on this one. This Hindu was Rajesh Muhor. He was his au pair when he was young. Carlo Acutis came from a well-to-do family to afford a male nanny. Rajesh converted to Christianity. Early on, his love for the poor became pretty evident, but is so much greater than his love of video games. He would bring food to the homeless when he was just a little boy, but limit his online games to just 2 hours per week. If you're watching this and a gamer, you know how time flies quickly in video games. So 2 hours per week is too little. So limiting yourself without your parents telling you to cut your gaming is unheard of. Listening to Carlo's friends after he died made them realize that Carlos playing video games with them was his way of bringing them to Jesus little by little. Setting up an example to them, Carlo learned to code in C and C++ when he was probably just 13 or 14 years old. This is just like Messi playing against grown-ups way before he can fly in a commercial airline on his own. He used Linux OS and used CoreWeave and Java to create landing pages on his website when kids of his age were hooked in Game Boy, PS2, or Xbox, although he did play video games too. Nevertheless, he used these extraordinary skills and knowledge not to be the next whiz kid in the footsteps of Elon Musk, but rather to a more sublime but a much greater purpose. He created a website about Eucharistic miracles from around the world, including scientific data that verifies the miracles. Not even the Vatican has initiated this effort with their vast array of information and resources available to them. With the power of the internet, he was able to evangelize people from around the world by telling them that Jesus is present in the Blessed Sacrament. Thus, it is just fitting to make our lives centered around the Holy Eucharist. Carlo's own life revolves around attending daily Mass since he was 7 years old and spending regular time in Eucharistic adoration. He also prayed the Rosary daily. On October 12, 2006, at the young age of 15, Carlo took his last breath after losing a battle against leukemia, just a week of the diagnosis. His body lies here in Assisi inside the Church of Santa Maria Maggiore at the Sanctuary of Spoliazione. Contrary to popular belief, though, Carlo's body was not found to be incorrupt. A lot of church leaders can also learn from this millennial saint when it comes to defending church teaching about the defense and protection of life, and perhaps as an extension, teachings about not bending to the powerful pressure of the LGBT lobby, especially from within the church. Saint Carlo was steadfast and unafraid to defend his faith against those who challenged it, very much like that of his fellow saint from Milan, Saint Ambrose. As someone who got bullied a lot, I love the fact that Carlo stood up for kids against the bullies. What's amazing is he does not stop with that, but always spoke plainly afterwards the importance of going to Mass, confession, human dignity, and chastity to the kids around him. Learning about this makes me realize that Saint Carlo probably did more on his own than most of us, including the members of the clergy of our time. There were 2 miracles attributed to Carlo's intercession. The first one was the healing of a 3-year-old Brazilian boy who was suffering from a malformation of pancreas since birth. The second miracle was with a Costa Rican student studying in Florence who was near death after injuring her head in a bicycle accident in Florence. She was miraculously healed after her mom visited the tomb of Saint Carlo in Assisi and asked for his intercession. This young Costa Rican lady was there during the canonization Mass yesterday and was the one who said the prayers of the faithful.
And people were taught what to do and were said by wisdom.
As a Gen Z and a model for digital evangelizers, he's still wearing jeans and tracksuit and Nike shoes. Saint Carlo showed us that ordinary teens can be a powerful witness of our Christian faith.
Saint Carlo Acutis, pray for us. sarado.
Oh, this is the rose garden.
No. Lie down on them. After that, the roses refuse to grow thorns. That's amazing. I can see it. There's no thorns. So this is where Saint Francis felt so bad about his sins that he did a little bit of mortification by rolling on the ground where the roses are. It's amazing. No, there's nothing. Yeah, there's no thorns. As you can see, there are no thorns. That is just so weird. After almost 1,000 years, they still have no thorns. Wow. I guess it's
It's not true that every rose has its thorn.
So, what did we get out of this pilgrimage? First, it was a lot cheaper compared to a structured pilgrimage tour. We had a lot of freedom on when do we leave for our activities of the day because there was no stringent schedule. But of course, we have to be mindful of the schedule of activities of the Vatican and the opening hours of the places that we visited, like Assisi. There were challenges, especially with our accommodation, but it was more of an annoyance more than anything else. Looking for platforms in the Termini was another one, but we live for that anyway, as we love adventures. Plus, we learned something new every day. Most of all, we were blessed with the witnesses of Saint Carloacutis and Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati. We enjoyed meeting other pilgrims who has the same spirit of making their pilgrimage part adventure, part out pilgrimage. Overall, our hearts were burning listening to the homilies and learning the lives and stories of the saints. Will we do this again? The answer is we cannot wait for our next pilgrimage adventure. Stay tuned!